We often talk about the big medical breakthroughs,
Right.
the really advanced machines, the new drugs. But have you ever stopped to think about, well, the coatings on the medical devices themselves?
It's funny you say that. It's one of those things that's kind of invisible, but the global market for it, it's surprisingly massive.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. We've got this really detailed report looking at the medical device coating market.
Yeah, the plan is basically to pull out the key stuff, where things stand now, where they're heading, and what's really driving all this change.
And this report, it's pretty current. Data up to March 2025.
That's right. Gives us a solid baseline for 2025, and then it forecasts all the way out to 2033.
Okay, let's jump into the numbers then. What are we looking at for 2025 globally?
So the starting point, 2025, is already quite substantial. USD 13,524.5 million.
$13.5 billion. Okay, but the projection, that's the really eye-opening part.
It really is. By 2033, it's projected to hit USD 61,327.7 million. Just massive growth.
51 billion. And the growth rate, the CAGR.
That comes out to a compound annual growth rate of 20.80%.
Wow. 20.8% year over year, compounded.
Sure.
Well, that's huge. What's fueling that kind of expansion?
It's a few big things coming together. The report points to the aging global population, more people needing medical care, naturally.
Right, the demographic shift.
Exactly. Plus, there's a big push for earlier disease detection and, importantly, less invasive treatments. People want better healthcare outcomes, less difficult procedures.
And higher quality healthcare overall, I suppose.
Absolutely. That demand for quality is a constant upward pressure. So you combine aging populations, the move to minimally invasive, and the general demand for better care. That's your engine.
Okay, a powerful combination. So globally, it's booming. How does it look region by region? Who's got the biggest piece of this pie right now?
Right now in 2025, North America is the dominant player. They've got over 40% of the market share.
Over 40%. And in dollar terms.
That translates to about USD 5,004.07 million for 2025. And their growth is strong too, projected at a 19.1% CAGR through 2033.
Still very solid growth. Who's next? Europe.
Yep, Europe holds the second spot. They've got over 30% of the market.
Okay.
Which comes out to USD 3,922.11 million in 2025.
So North America and Europe together are, what, over 70% of the current market?
Pretty much, yeah. They're the established giants.
But where's the fastest growth happening? You mentioned that huge overall KGR.
For the fastest growth, you need to look at the Asia-Pacific region, APAC.
Okay.
Their market share in 2025 is around 23%, so USD 3,245.88 million. But their growth rate...
This is where it gets interesting.
Yeah, their projected KGR is a stunning 23.9%. That's the highest globally.
Almost 24%.
Okay.
And any specific countries standing out there?
Definitely. India in particular is highlighted. Its CAGR is projected to be even higher at 25.8%.
Wow, nearly 26% growth year on year for India. That's incredible. Makes you really think about the healthcare transformation happening
It
there.
really does. Massive investments, growing middle class, demand skyrocketing.
Okay, so APAC is the speedster. What about the other regions, South America?
South America holds a bit over 5% of the market in 2025. That's around USD 513.93 million.
And their growth.
Still very strong. Projected CGR of 21.6%. The report mentions medical tourism being a factor, especially in places like Brazil.
Interesting angle. And the Middle East.
The Middle East is smaller, around 2% market share, about USD 540.98 million in 2025. But their growth is also projected to be quick, 22.2% CAGR.
Why so high there?
The report links it partly to a rise in age-related diseases in the region.
Okay. And finally, Africa.
Africa holds the smallest share, around 1%, which is USD 297.54 million in 2025.
But still growing fast.
Yes, a projected CAGR of 21.1%. There's a noticeable push towards local manufacturing of medical devices there, trying to build up domestic capacity.
Fascinating. So really strong growth across the board, but APAC, particularly India, is just exploding.
That's the picture, yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The report breaks things down by the type of coating too, right?
It does. Two main categories stand out.
Which are?
Hydrophilic coatings are expected to hold the dominant share.
Hydrophilic, meaning they like water.
Exactly. They attract water, creating this super slippery surface. Think about minimally invasive surgery. Again, catheters, endoscopes, guide wires.
So they slide in more easily. Less friction, less trauma for the patient.
Precisely. As minimally invasive procedures become more common, the demand for these coatings just keeps rising.
Makes perfect sense. What's the other key type? You said two stood out.
The other one is antimicrobial coatings, and these are actually the fastest growing segment.
Antimicrobial, so fighting off bugs.
Exactly. It's all about tackling healthcare-associated infections, or HAIs.
Yeah, those are a huge problem in hospitals.
Huge. The WHO estimates over 7 million patients globally get hit with HAIs every year. So coatings that stop bacteria from sticking to devices, from forming biofilms, they're incredibly valuable.
Right, preventing infection before it even starts. Critical stuff.
Absolutely. It's a direct impact on patient safety and healthcare costs.
So hydrophilic for function, antimicrobial for safety. Got it. What about the actual chemistry? What are these coatings made of?
Well, looking at the chemistry, the biggest share belongs to fluoropolymers.
Fluoropolymers, like Teflon.
Exactly. PTFE, which most people know as Teflon, is a big one, along with others like FEP and PFA.
And why are they dominant?
It comes down to their incredible slipperiness, lubricity, and their non-stick properties. Just what you need for catheters, guide wires, stents, things that need to move smoothly without sticking.
Okay, so lubricity is king there. What about chemistries that are growing fastest? Is it the same group?
Actually, the report highlights silicone-based coatings as expanding very rapidly.
Silicone. Why the rapid growth there?
Similar reasons, really. Excellent lubricity. They're becoming vital for minimally invasive procedures, too, especially in cardiovascular treatments, urology, orthopedics.
So multiple chemistries offering that crucial low-friction property.
Right, the demand is just pulling these materials forward.
Okay, we've covered type and chemistry. What about the device itself, the substrate being coated?
Good question. The largest market share there is held by polymers.
Plastics, basically.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. Things like polyurethane, PTFE, polyethylene, polypropylene, and silicone polymers, too.
Why polymers? What makes them so popular as a base material?
It's their versatility. They're flexible, lightweight, generally easier and cheaper to manufacture into complex shapes.
Right.
Think catheters again, tubing, even parts of syringes or implant components. Silicone, especially, is great for biocompatibility in implants.
So polymers offer a good balance of properties.
Oh.
What's the fastest growing substrate type for coatings?
That would be the metallic sector.
Metals, like implants.
Exactly. Stainless steel, titanium alloys, they provide strength and durability, especially for implants like artificial joints or cardiovascular stents.
But metals can corrode in the body, right?
Yeah.
Or cause reactions.
They can. And that's where coatings become crucial. Things like titanium nitride or hydroxyapatite.
What do those coatings do?
They create a protective barrier. They prevent corrosion, stop metal ions from leaching out, reduce wear and tear. Some, like hydroxyapatite, can even help the implant integrate better with the bone.
Ah, so the coating enhances the metal's performance and safety inside the body.
Precisely. It's about improving biocompatibility and longevity.
Okay, interesting. Now let's look at the end use. Where are these coated devices actually being applied most?
The biggest application segment currently is general surgery.
Just because of the sheer volume of procedures.
Exactly that. Think about all the common surgeries performed worldwide. The WHO estimates something like 313 million surgical procedures happen globally every year.
313 million. That's staggering.
It is. And in many of those, coded instruments or devices are being used more and more to improve outcomes, reduce complications like infections or tissue damage.
Okay, so volume drives general surgery. Which application area is growing the fastest?
That would be orthopedics.
Joint replacements and the like.
Yes, primarily. The demand for joint replacements, knees, hips, is just soaring. It's driven by aging populations, higher rates of arthritis, people wanting to stay active longer.
I've heard some crazy projections about knee replacements.
Yeah, the report cites one from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, projecting a 673% increase in total knee replacements in the U.S. by 2030.
673%.
It's a massive number, and all those implants need sophisticated surfaces, often involving coatings for better integration, wear resistance, and sometimes antimicrobial properties.
That really puts the growth in orthopedics into perspective.
Okay.
This is great detail. Can we circle back to the regions now, maybe with some specific country numbers you mentioned? Europe, for instance.
Sure. So Europe's a big market, over 30% share.
Right.
We mentioned the MDR, the medical device regulation, kind of pushing standards higher.
Right. Stricter rules often drive adoption of better tech.
Exactly. For 2025 figures, the UK is estimated around USD 658.91 million, growing at about 20.5% CAGR.
Okay.
France is a bit smaller, USD 360.83 million with an 18.9% CAGR. And Germany is the largest in Europe, USD 776.58 million.
And Germany's growth.
Around 19.9% CAGR. They do a high volume of orthopedic and cardiovascular procedures, which fits with those application trends we talked about.
So solid, steady growth in Europe, influenced by regulation and procedure volume. Now, back to that high flyer, APAC.
Right. The overall 23.9% RGR is really powered by the giants there. China's 2025 market is estimated at USD 1,363.27 million, growing at 23.4%.
Huge market already, still growing incredibly fast.
And India, as we highlighted, USD 324.59 million in 2025, but with that leading CAGR of 25.8%.
And the driver there is government investment.
That's a major factor, yes. Big investments in healthcare infrastructure upgrades across the region are fueling demand for more advanced devices, including coded ones.
Makes sense. What about South America? Again, you mentioned Brazil and Argentina, but also the rest of South America.
Yeah, it's interesting. Brazil is the biggest market, about USD 219.96 million in 2025, but its CAGR is lower, around 7.2%. Argentina is similar, USD 86.34 million, 7.5% CAGR.
But the rest of the region?
Combined, the rest of South America shows a much higher projected CAGR, 20.7%.
Huh. So maybe the smaller markets have more room for rapid catch-up growth.
That could be it. Different stages of market development, maybe different levels of investment kicking in.
Fascinating. Okay, Middle East and Africa, specific countries.
In the Middle East, dealing with those age-related diseases, Saudi Arabia leads with USD 190.42 million in 2025 and a strong 22.5% CAGR. The UAE is next, USD 111.44 million, also growing fast at 22.7%.
Very robust growth. And Africa?
South Africa is the key market mentioned, USD 104.73 million in 2025 with a 22.0% CAGR. This aligns with that trend of trying to boost local production.
Right, building self-sufficiency. Okay, finalists land back in North America, the current leader.
Still the biggest chunk, over 40%. The U.S. market alone is estimated at USD 3,948.21 million for 2025.
Nearly $4 billion just in the U.S. And its growth.
Still very healthy at 18.9% CAGR. A big driver there, as we touched on with antimicrobial coatings, is the intense focus on reducing hospital-acquired infections.
Those HAI numbers are alarming.
They are. The report mentions around 1.7 million HAIs reported each year in the U.S. That creates huge pressure to adopt preventative tech like antimicrobial coatings.
Absolutely. What about Canada and Mexico?
Canada's market is also significant, USD 600.49 million, growing at 19.9% CAGR. Mexico is around USD 455.37 million, with a 19.6% CAGR.
So strong growth across North America, driven significantly by the U.S. market and factors like HAI concerns.
That sums it up well, yes.
Okay, this has been a really comprehensive look. If you had to boil it down, what are the absolute key takeaways from this deep dive into the medical device coating market?
Well, first, just the sheer scale of the expected growth. That 20.8% global CAGR is really the headline figure, driven by these big underlying trends: aging, minimally invasive surgery, demand for quality.
Right, the growth is undeniable.
Second, you see how specific needs drive innovation in coating types: hydrophilic for slipperiness, antimicrobial to fight HAIs. These aren't just nice-to-haves, they're solving real problems.
Yeah, function-driven demand.
Third, the chemistry and substrate choices are crucial for performance, whether it's fluoropolymers for lubricity or coatings on metals for biocompatibility. And finally, while it's a global market, the regional stories differ quite a bit based on healthcare systems, investment levels, and specific health challenges.
Great summary. It really emphasizes how interconnected everything is, from demographics down to material science.
Exactly.
So thinking about this rapid growth, this increasing sophistication, what's a provocative thought to leave our listeners with? Where might this all be heading beyond just better, slipperier, safer coatings?
Provocative thought. Well, right now, most coatings are, passive. They provide a property slipperiness, antimicrobial effect. But what if coatings become active participants?
Active how?
Could we see coatings that, say, slowly release specific drugs right where they're needed? Or maybe smart coatings that can actually sense conditions in the body, like inflammation or infection, and then change their properties or signal outwards?
Wow, like responsive materials built into the device surface.
Exactly. Coatings that diagnose or even treat directly. The line between device and drug, or device and diagnostic, could get really blurry thanks to coating technology. Given the market size and growth, you have to assume there's serious research going into these kinds of next-generation ideas.
That really opens up some fascinating possibilities for the future of medical devices. It feels like we've only scratched the surface today.
It's a deep field, definitely.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. If you listening found this interesting, remember, this is just one layer. There's so much more beneath regarding specific technologies, the companies involved, the regulatory hurdles. But hopefully, this gave you a strong sense of this vital and rapidly growing part of the medical world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.